finals of the Max Heart tournament is set. Mizuki and Uda Takami will take on current Princess Tag Team champions Uber Eats. We'll talk all about how we got there, plus updates around Texas, Vancouver, and Grand Princess. We also have homecoming show announcements, upcoming collabs in Japan and Italy, a bunch of excursions to keep eyes on, and a very happy birthday to Shion Kanzaki. All that and more coming up on the Tokyo Joshi Pod. Stay tuned. Hello to all you big children out there. Konnichiwa and welcome to the Tokyo Joshi Pod, your weekly dose of everything TJPW. I'm your host Andy Zyke, and today's show promises to be massive. We have so much to get into: the Max Heart tournament, new excursions, show announcements. I don't want to beat around the bush with an extended intro pretending to care about this weekend's Super Bowl. So the one thing I do want to briefly mention, though, is my appearance on Red Belt Radio this past weekend. Jason, you might know him better as String 6 Splash. Jason and I had a really great chat previewing the upcoming Stardom pay-per-view, Supreme Fight, and talking quite a bit about Maki Itoh, her background, how she made the jump over to Stardom, where we see her going in Stardom. I will go ahead and drop the YouTube video link to that in the show notes, so you can all check that out and you can watch me pretend to know what I'm talking about when it comes to Stardom. Make sure you also give Jason a follow, String 6 Splash on YouTube and X, Twitter. He makes some really great videos covering a bunch of Stardom news. He previews most of the major Stardom shows. He also has a couple of beginner's guides as well, so if you are interested in getting into Stardom and you don't really know where to begin, he has a lot of really good videos on his channel. And as always, thank you so much for the continued support for the Tokyo Joshi Pod. Really means the world to me. Really looking forward to a lot of things that are upcoming, even more things that are upcoming that have been announced in the past week. Speaking of announcements, let's go ahead and dive on into the news. We have so much news to comb through over the past week. I don't know how it all fit into the 7-day window since the last show. It's crazy. Let's start off with Texas Stampede. Texas Stampede upcoming in the middle of March from Tokyo Story USA and TJPW, a collaboration of sorts. We now know information around the Houston show. We already knew that the two Austin shows were on March 17th and 18th. We knew that Dallas was on March 21st. Well, now we know that the Houston date has been confirmed for Sunday, March 22nd, a 3 p.m. bell time, so an afternoon show down in Houston. The same 18 ladies will be attending this show as are attending the previous two shows. There are also these non-Japanese talent that are supposed to be announced in the near future. So in addition to the 18 TJPW wrestlers that are coming through, you will also see some likely American talent. I know last year they featured a few indie talent from the state of Texas. So maybe we'll see some of those folks again or some similar names again. We also saw Yuka Sakazaki last year, but I think that was just because AEW was in town that same weekend, so I wouldn't count on seeing Yuka, but hey, you never know. Last year they made a late addition to the roster with Wakana, so we may still see some additional names beyond these 18. The Houston show, getting back to that, will be taking place at the same venue as the Houston shows last year, post-Houston. This is like a converted post office. It was like a post office, I'm understanding, and it's been converted into, I don't know if it's like a shopping mall or an event space or something like that, kind of like a multi-purpose building. Tickets are on sale for all shows, both Austin shows, the Dallas show, and the Houston show. Tickets are on sale for all of them. And ticket information and how to buy your tickets, that is all found on Tokyo Story USA's website. So head on over to the Tokyo Story USA website. You can pick up your tickets there. You can get information on TJPW, on the wrestlers that are attending, on the venues, all sorts of good stuff. They have very specific times on like doors opening, bell times, when the meet and greets are going to be happening. So you can really plan out your travel to Texas, a lot of your timing for all of those dates. Real quickly, I will mention those 18 competitors that have been confirmed for the Texas Tour: Miyu Watanabe, Yuki Kamifuku, Wakana Uehara, Miyu Yamashita, who will be celebrating her birthday on the 17th, Shoko Nakajima, Mizuki, Rika Tatsumi, Hyper Misao, Raku, Yuki Aino, Suzume, Pam Harajuku, Arisu Endo, Yuki Arai, Kaya Toribami, Shino Suzuki, and then US debuts for Mifu Ishida and Uda Takami. Now, in addition to the March Texas tour, TJPW has also announced a Canadian tour taking place in April. We do have a few announcements related to these Vancouver premiere shows. These are the shows taking place on Saturday, April 11th and Sunday, April 12th from the Great Canadian Hastings Racecourse and Casino. We have talent confirmations for Vancouver. 13 TJPW wrestlers will be making the trip over to Vancouver, Canada. Those 13 include Miyu Watanabe, Yuki Kamifuku, Wakana Uehara, Miyu Yamashita, Yuki Arai, Suzume, Raku, Pam Harajuku, Kaya Toribami, Himawari, Toga, Shino Suzuki, and Uda Takami. So all 4 of the Up girls will be in attendance there. There's also a few differences from Texas. Himawari is going to be headed over to Vancouver. Toga is going to be headed over to Vancouver. That's very exciting. And in addition to all of that, the ring announcer for this show will be TJPW's own Sayuri Namba. Sayuri, obviously now residing in Vancouver, Canada, will lend her talents as ring announcer to both of these shows. And she is also calling herself the ultimate executive producer of these shows. I don't know what that entails, but it sounds like a job that I don't want. That sounds like a lot of work. Tickets for these Vancouver shows are also now on sale, and you can find all of the information for these tickets on the TJPW website. Apparently, on the 11th, there is, in that same venue, that Great Canadian Hastings Racecourse and Casino, there is apparently some sort of a mystery wrestling show that is taking place that's being put on by Evil Uno. It seems interesting that there is a show happening on the same day at the same venue on around the same time of year. I wonder if there'll be any sort of not necessarily collaboration, but if maybe any American talents will be appearing on the TJPW show, or vice versa, if any mystery announcements for this mystery show will include some of the TJPW wrestlers. I don't know much about the Evil Uno show. I just happened to hear about it in passing. So I'll have to do a little bit more research on what all of that is about. But it's just worth noting that there will be another show happening at that moment at that venue. If 2 shows in North America are not enough for you, well, TJPW has announced a collaboration back in Japan with Gaisen Sakura Pro Wrestling. Now, this is an event that we had our eyes on for the past couple of weeks, but we were covering it over in the excursions corner because at the time, Yuki Aino was the only TJPW talent announced for this show. Well, TJPW has announced that they will be partnering with Gaisen Sakura Pro Wrestling for this show that will be taking place on Saturday, April 11th. And if you are an astute listener, you will notice that that is the same Saturday as Vancouver. We will talk about that in just a moment. This Gaisen Sakura Pro Wrestling show will take place outdoors. It's this nice looking outdoor venue in Okayama. And this will be the first event for Gaisen Sakura Pro Wrestling since debuting 2 years ago in 2024. So second event overall, first time in 2 years. I promised I would do a little bit of research on this. So these Gaisen Sakura Pro Wrestling shows are put on by Nodoka Tenma, former TJPW alum Nodoka Tenma, who is currently, I think she's a rice farmer or something like that, out in Okayama. And she puts these shows on with her husband, who is a wrestler in Basara, Pro Wrestling Basara. And basically, this is going to be some sort of a collaboration show featuring Basara talent and TJPW talent. In fact, TJPW, they announced that there are 6 total matches, 3 of which will be from TJPW, 3 of which will be from Basara. There are 11 total TJPW talent announced for this show. Mizuki, Shoko Nakajima, Rika Tatsumi, Hyper Misao, Yuki Aino, Mihiro Kiryu, Arisu Endo, Haru Kazushiro, Mifu Ishida, Kira Summer, Chika Nanase, and then in addition to that, TJPW has also announced that Aja Kong will be on this show as well. Now, as I mentioned, this Gaisen show is on Saturday, April 11th, the same date as one of the Vancouver shows. So the talent that are announced for Vancouver and the talent that are announced for this Gaisen show are mutually exclusive, meaning that you will not see any of the 11 ladies that I just named for the Gaisen show make their way over to Canada, nor will you see any of the Canadian talent announced make their way over for this Gaisen show. Looking at the numbers, there are 13 women for Vancouver, 11 for Gaisen. That's 24. TJPW's roster is 26. I'm just thinking of this right now as I'm recording, but Shion Kanzaki is one of them that is not named on both of these, and I can't think of the other one here off the top of my head. You guys are probably knowing it and screaming it right now, but perhaps maybe one of these two ladies, Shion or the other one I can't think of, get added to one of these shows. I can't imagine that Shion flies to Canada. I'd be really surprised, pleasantly surprised. But worth noting that there are two ladies that are not announced for either of the shows. That said, something that I do want to note, and we will talk about this a little bit more in depth once we get to the excursion corner and we're talking about some of the Vegas announcements, but that weekend, April 11th and 12th, I think that TJPW has a show in Japan that weekend. You know what, let me double check that while I'm recording this. But the point I want to make is the following weekend, once we get into the Las Vegas timing, that there are no TJPW shows on the calendar. Okay, so it looks like TJPW has a show in Japan on Wednesday, April 8th, and then we'll see the Gaisen show on Saturday the 11th. We will see the Vancouver show on Saturday the 11th and Sunday the 12th. And then WrestleMania week/weekend starts on Wednesday the 15th. And TJPW doesn't have a show in Japan if we don't count that Gaisen show on the 11th. Their last show will be on Wednesday, April 8th, and then they don't have another show until Friday the 24th. So obviously half the roster will be going to Vancouver on Saturday the 11th and Sunday the 12th, but really from Sunday the 12th all the way up to Friday the 24th, you're talking almost 2 full weeks, probably about like 10-ish, a little more days. Nothing's on the calendar. So park that thought. We'll circle back to that as we get into the Vegas announcements and the excursions corner. Back onto some news. As if April wasn't busy enough, TJPW announced a collaboration with SAJ Wrestling. This is a company based out of Italy, and there is going to be a collaboration show between SAJ and TJPW. Right now, the posters just call this SAJ and TJPW. This show will be taking place on Sunday, April 26th from Milan, Italy. Only one talent has been announced so far, and that is Hyper Misao. Although I will also say on the announcement poster, Miyu Yamashita was included on that, so would assume that Yamashita will be a part of this show as well. Yamashita has wrestled for SAJ in the past, too. I have read some rumors that there is a second European show that's going to happen around this time. I always like to say that I have zero sources. I am not plugged in anywhere. This is not official. Just covering all of my bases there. But I have read some rumor that there may be a second European-based show announced for this time frame. I don't want to speculate too hard on, rumor and conjecture. But worth keeping your eyes on. Sometimes where there is smoke, there's fire. And if some of the roster is already over there for this show, maybe there'll be another collaboration show. But we'll just have to keep our ears to the ground to see if that rumor proves true. In addition to all of these collaborations, all of this travel that TJPW will be doing, we have a few homecoming shows. So maybe in contrast to all of this travel, some of our talent will be returning back to their home prefectures. We had 3 homecoming show announcements, one for Mifu Ishida, one for Miyu Yamashita, and one for Suzume. Mifu Ishida will have her very first homecoming show. It's going to be called Home Cheer Home on April 4th from Fukuchiyama in the Kyoto Prefecture. The very next day, on April 5th, TJPW is going to be in Fukuoka for their TJPW Spring Tour next door in Fukuoka. That will be Miyu Yamashita's homecoming show. Yamashita's had a few homecoming shows in the past. And then in May 6th to be exact, Suzume will have her very first homecoming show as well. Probably the coolest named show that I have ever heard. Back to the Hive. Love that name. Suzume is from Tsukuba in the Ibaraki Prefecture. And again, first time homecoming show for her, and then first time homecoming show for Ishida. So there is a heck of a lot of things cooking in April specifically for TJPW, but truly also March and May as well, as we're really starting to get into this hot spring. And there's also a major show back in Japan that we have on the calendar at the end of March, Grand Princess 2-6. Well, we have a very few minor news and notes for Grand Princess 2-6. I'll breeze through these pretty quickly, but Super Sasadango Machine, our PR ambassador, let us know last week or the week before that he is going to be issuing a few challenges to TJPW staff and roster members. That first challenge went out to Tetsuya Koda, where he is tasked with booking a celebrity level figure, someone who can sell out Ryogoku Kokugikan on their own, who has no prior wrestling experience, to make their wrestling debut. Tall task for Koda. Well, Super Sasadango Machine has issued 3 additional challenges of much less stature on X. And those 3 challenges, one of them went out to Minimo-chan, the Minimochi mascot that will be attending Grand Princess. He has tasked Minimo-chan with mastering a finishing move. Pretty easy, I would guess, if Minimo-chan's going to be making their wrestling debut. You need a finisher. He has also tasked Shino Suzuki to beat 3 influencers with a combined following of 100,000 followers in some Junkin, which is that rock, paper, scissors game where you then have to point and look in the opposite direction. So very, very specific task for Shino Suzuki to complete, but one that I think is possible. And he didn't stop there. Sasadango Machine also issued a challenge all the way up the ladder to Shingo Takagi. He asked him to scout 1 new idol. That's really interesting. I don't know if that means just to attend this show as a special guest, or if we're looking at, maybe another Up Girl member, something like that. I don't know. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself there, but some big challenges from Super Sasadango Machine. Remember, he is also wrestling at Grand Princess, teaming with Hyper Misao to take on Konosuke Takeshita and Yuka Sakazaki. And then the last bit of news that I want to touch on in this overloaded news section this week is that we have a birthday. On Wednesday, February 11th, TJPW's newest debutee, Shion Kanzaki, will be celebrating her 25th birthday. Shion actually recently gave an interview to a Japanese outlet called Encount, and it was a pretty interesting interview. I want to talk about it just a little bit briefly because it gives us more of an insight into who Shion is beyond what TJPW has told us. And Shion conveyed that she started watching wrestling at a really young age with her family. They attended shows live at Sumo Hall, Corcoran Hall. They would go to Wrestle Kingdom from time to time as well. She spoke a little bit about her kendo background in middle school, and that when she went to high school, that was really where she got into the music scene and formed her band. And what was really interesting about this is that she went into detail about how she used to wrestle, no pun intended, how she used to wrestle with the drive for success for her band, but then at the same time, the fear of success with her band. And it was ultimately that fear that led to her band disbanding. And shortly after leaving that band, or that band breaking up, Shion returned home, applied to TJPW, began training. Obviously, the rest is history there. But there were a couple of interesting nuggets within her conversations around TJPW. She debuted within 6 months of starting training, which I think is incredible. That's such a short amount of time. So kudos to Shion. I think you see that a lot too in some of her wrestling. She seems to pick a lot of it up pretty easily, pretty fluidly. She also talks about how she wrote her own entrance theme shortly after she started training. It's titled Rebirth, and it kind of symbolizes her her rebirth into a different spotlight, out of the music scene and into the wrestling scene. She mentions that she wears all black gear, and that is kind of inspired by some punk rock vibes. She also, interesting thing here, she also says that she's still figuring out her wrestling style since she is only about a month into it, but that she wants to try more power-based techniques, so that's kind of curious. She ends the interview saying that wrestling supported her throughout some of her biggest struggles in life. It was always there to keep her going. So she wants to become a wrestler that people can look to in a similar light as a support system to keep going in life. So that is her goal as a professional wrestler. It's a really cool interview. I found it via TJPW's X account. They tweeted out the link to it. So if you do want to go ahead and read it, it is in Japanese, of course. But it is a really interesting interview and a very happy 25th birthday to Shion Kanzaki. Now, there has been so much news over the past week that I have almost buried the lead here. The Max Heart Tournament semifinals took place on Saturday, January 31st from the Shinjuku face. This was live on Wrestle Universe, about a 2.5 hour show, and quite an eventful one, quite a newsworthy one. Just prior to this show, it was announced that Kaya Toribami will be absent, and Kaya's actually going to be absent for about 2 weeks or so due to a foot injury. Not sure where she suffered this foot injury, but they did mention, TJPW mentioned that she will be aiming to return on February 14th. That is the finals of the Max Heart tournament. Attendance for the semifinals here at Shinjuku Face, 282, so not the strongest number. TJPW was just here like a month or so ago for New Year Party, where they drew 361. Maybe worth noting that that was coming off of the heels of that really popular Corcoran Hall show they had on January 4th. Maybe there were some foreigners still bouncing around. I want to say that show was like on the 10th or something like that. So maybe that is where that increase comes from. But regardless, a little bit of a decrease here for this show. And prior to any wrestling, we actually kicked off with a contract signing. Rise Shirai presided over the International Princess title contract signing between Mirai, our current International Princess champion, and the challenger Toga. Remember that this match is set for those Max Heart finals on February 14th. Both ladies signed the contract and gave some really brief comments. Toga mentioned that she wants to show her growth as a singles wrestler, building upon her Princess Tag title challenge from last year. And Mirai mentioned that she's been studying footage almost daily on Wrestle Universe of Toga, and she admitted that she was a little bit scared of Toga's explosive power. And that said, she's really looking forward to beating Toga and then defending this title at Grand Princess 2-6. So in some ways, looking a little bit past Toga, but that concluded the contract signing. It was only about 10 or 15 minutes. Rise Shirai then gave the standard opening remarks, house rules, and we did have an announcement. Here is where we learned about the homecoming shows for Yamashita, Ashita, and Suzume. They all came out, gave some brief comments about the shows, basically just encouraged fans to attend each of the shows. And then we had the Up Up Girls performance, Kawatsuyo Challenger. Our first contest was a singles match between Himawari and Shion Kanzaki, and I have to say, after talking about Shion's music a little bit ago, it's so good. The fact that she sings it, performs it, wrote both the lyrics and the music, it's a really good debut entrance theme. Regarding the match, this one doesn't take long for Himawari to start taking advantage of Shion by using her hair. Kind of feels like in a way that Himawari tricked her a little bit, but at the same time, Shion's been around a month now. She should know better. She knows Himawari's offense is mostly built around her hair. In this match, Shion was literally screaming. She was so afraid of Himawari's hair whips, and that's basically mostly what this match is. Repeated hair whips, hair chokes. Occasionally we get a wrestling move or two from Himawari. A little bit later on, towards the end of this, Shion smartens up a little bit, ends up grabbing Himawari's hair, good counter move, begins to take a little bit of control of the match, but that's very short-lived. Himawari gets Shion into a half Boston Crab, and Shion submits in 6 minutes and 24 seconds. Up next, we had another singles match, and I'll put match in quotes this time, between Hyper Misao and Shino Suzuki. Misao starts off on the microphone reflecting on her previous singles match with Shino. And if you recall, that match was the geography trivia match where they were invoking the spirit of this Japanese comedian named Gorgeous. But basically, Misao was reflecting on this match and saying that she was a bit immature back then, and that this time she wants to do something that Shino enjoys, which is jumping rope. So Misao proposes that every time somebody kicks out, the other person, the person who pinned their opponent, would have to do 10 double jumps with the jump rope. Shino agreed to this, but she added a stipulation of her own that she will win the match with a 2 count, while Misao would need to win with a more standard 3 count. So they agree to these crazy rules, and they get the match going. There is a very quick roll-up on Misao, who kicks out at 1. Shino has to jump rope. She's actually really good at it. There is a second quick roll-up, a 2 count on Shino. Misao then has to jump rope. She is not quite as good at it as Shino was. This is not really a match. Most of this was the two of them afraid to pin each other, thinking that they'd need to jump rope again on a kick out. Misao does cheat a little bit, of course. She uses her cold spray. She finds a way to wrap Shino in the jump rope. Somehow they both roll each other up, and both of them need to jump rope. All of this basically ends when Misao is able to pin Shino with a 3 count with a Le Magistral Cradle in 8 minutes and 16 seconds. Third on the show, we had a 6-woman tag team match. The team of Prism Greed teamed up with Shoko Nakajima to take on the Kyoto pairing of Yuki Arai and Mifu Ishida, and they teamed with Kira Summer. Arai's team enters to their new song, Yuki-san, I Love You, sung by Mifu Ishida. Totally kidding. They do not enter to that song. That song, thankfully, does not exist. They do enter to Arai's music, though. Prism Greed comes out, still in their new gear. They and Shoko all enter together to... I had to do a lot of research for this, so bear with me. They enter to a Super Sentai show theme song. Remember, Super Sentai is I don't want to call it the Japanese Power Rangers, because I think it came before Power Rangers, but it's basically a form of Power Rangers is the easiest way to think about it. This trio of Haru, Yuki Aino, and Shoko Nakajima are referred to as the Tojo Tokusatsu Club. And basically they are fans of Super Sentai and Kamen Rider and this IP of television shows. They also come out carrying toys. Shoko Nakajima had this big sword, and then Haru and Aino had some sort of a device in their hands. I'm not quite sure what it was. Basically, they were nerds doing nerdy things is the best way that I could describe what was going on here. As for the match, Shoko and Arai start out with a pretty nice sequence. Prism Greed and Shoko then go for this corner triple team tower attack on Arai. Think of the Power Rangers or the Super Sentai fighters combining. I remember when I was a kid and I used to watch the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, they would always get to a point in the battle where they would combine together and form this giant mechanical T-Rex. More or less that's what they were going for here. They wanted to combine together. Well, it didn't quite work out too well because Haru was on the bottom of this pyramid and just couldn't lift up Aino and Shoko on her shoulders. So Mifu Ishida jumps in the ring with Kira Summer. Remember, they are on the opposite team here. They cheer her on. Nice little sportsmanship moment. The crowd starts chanting for Haru, so she gets up enough courage, tries it again, and the entire tower just collapses. That kind of turns the tides for us here. Arai, Mifu, and Kira then take turns beating up on Haru for a little bit. Aino is able to find her way in, suffers somewhat of the same fate. Shoko is finally able to turn the tide back for her team against Kira, and after some pretty nice double team moves from Prism Greed, Shoko is able to put Kira away with a Northern Lights suplex in 10 minutes and 40 seconds. Now, there were surprisingly some backstage comments from this match. The Tojo Tokusatsu Club got together, and this is pretty interesting. They invited a Super Sentai hero to Grand Princess 2-6. Now, any other show, any other, backstage comments at any other time of year is what I'm trying to say. I would think this is a part of the bit. They're playing their super fandom role here. They've got their toys. They won the match with the spirit of the Sentai, whatever the heck it is. But with Grand Princess, I'm not so sure. TJPW is setting up Grand Princess to be their biggest show of all time. I wouldn't be shocked if TJPW has some sort of a gimmick here. Maybe we get a tag team match where Shoko and Haru and Aino are all together and they find a way to get a Super Sentai hero, accompany them with their entrance. I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not going to put it past Grand Princess 26 at this point. This show is going to be massive, and maybe we'll see a Super Sentai hero there. Next up on this show, however, is another 6-woman tag team match. Daydream teamed with Mihiro Kiryu to take on Ren Kanatsu, Raku, and Miyu Yamashita. Yamashita was wearing a matching bow in her hair to match with her partners. Thought that was pretty cute. The crowd did too. They were screaming like kawaii at Yamashita. On the other side, Rika tried to pin her own partner during Mihiro's opening call, Mihiro being that DDT Iron Man heavy metal weight champion. That was some miscommunication, though, right off the rip for the Daydream and Mihiro team, and that allowed Yamashita and Raku and Ren to take early control here. They hit an Oyasumi Express, and quite an aggressive one from Yamashita. She was like really stomping her way across that Oyasumi Express. Yamashita and Raku beat up on Mihiro a little bit more. Raku suffocates her with her pillow and then nearly pins her. Mihiro is trying to like wrestle the pillow away after she kicks out, and somehow or other manages to take out her own partners, Watanabe and Rika. She just like smacks them with this pillow in the process. Rika and Watanabe are so upset that they refuse to tag in, so Mihiro has to apologize to them. Rika is like having none of it. She doesn't want anything to do with Mihiro at this point, but Miyu is just a little too kind-hearted and she extends a hand for a tag. Watanabe then has a pretty nice exchange with both Raku and then Yamashita. She tags in Riku for some Daydream double team action. They do also do that like wheelbarrow twisting Alabama slam move. I wish I knew what they called it. Yamashita, though, able to fight back a little bit against Rika, tags in Ren Kanatsu, who was immediately put into a figure 4 from Rika. Raku has to run in a couple of times to save her. Now that's a good partner, not Rika Tatsumi refusing a tag. Ren is able to lock in a sleeper hold, but Rika is able to muscle out of it for a White Dragon sleeper of her own. Ren comes really close to passing out, but Yamashita is there with a real stiff kick to the back of Rika. From here on, things really break down, but Rika is eventually able to hit Ren with a Twist of Fate, picks up the victory for her team at 9 minutes and 7 seconds. Afterwards, Rika agrees to hug it out with Mihiro, but it is all a ruse, and she forearms her in the chest, causing Mihiro to just hightail it out of the ring before there's any more danger around her Iron Man title. Our next match was a tag team match, and this was a preview match for our International Princess title contest coming up shortly. Mirai teamed with Sarah Phoenix to take on Toga and Chika Nanase. Interesting tag team partner selection for both of these ladies, I have to say. Mirai and Toga start us out. They really just like feel each other out a little bit. They didn't do too much. We get pairings of all 4 of these women, and I thought Chika and Sarah in particular was surprisingly good. Sarah does a really terrific cannonball into the corner. I think Sarah's pretty good competitor. I have to say that her excursion to TJPW has to be considered a success. Eventually, we find our way back to Mirai and Toga. Mirai gets the quick upper hand. You can really see like her veteran experience coming through in her counters, the anticipation of Toga's moves. They exchange some forearms. Mirai gets a little bit cocky, but Toga's able to land this like really stiff, nasty forearm to Mirai. That probably woke her up big time. Chika tags in, and I thought that this would kind of signal the end of the match, but we actually get another like 2 or 3 minutes of Chika and Mirai going back and forth. Things break down, and Chika almost gets the modified Inari Tori locked in on Mirai, but Mirai is somehow able to counter it into a move that she is calling the Suteki Mirai lock, basically like the nice Mirai lock or the wonderful Mirai lock. And Chika gives up absolutely screaming in pain at 14 minutes and 59 seconds. After the match is over, we do get a brief face-off between Mirai and Toga, and then backstage we get some comments. Mirai said that Toga's strikes were a bit stronger than they looked on Wrestle Universe, but she reiterated wanting to defend her title and then go on to Grand Princess. Toga said she felt that she should have closed this match for her team and said that Mirai hasn't seen everything that she has to offer yet. She's been holding a couple of things back. This will be our only preview match for this International Princess title defense. So we end this with Mirai having the 1-0 advantage over Toga here. We'll have to see when that match rolls around in just a few short weeks. I don't know if I love Toga's chances here, especially with Mirai looking ahead to Grand Princess, but using that same logic, you could argue that Mirai is looking ahead to Grand Princess. Perhaps she's underestimating Toga. Moving on to our semifinal for the evening, we saw Daisy Monkey go up against the team of Uda Takami and Mizuki in one of two Max Heart semifinal contests. Both teams started out this one trying to surprise one another with kicks at the handshakes. Mizuki and Uda were able to outsmart Daisy Monkey. Mizuki, I'd have to say, is like the craftiest one of these four, so kind of makes sense. Mizuki and Uda do the same bit from last week where they try to whip Uda into the corner at their opponents, but Uda ends up hitting no one. Daisy Monkey, they took too long and Daisy Monkey moved out of the way. So Mizuki tries to audible and charge into the corner after Daisy Monkey, but she accidentally hits Uda, so really not off to a great start for Uda and Mizuki. Things settle down for a little bit with Daisy Monkey beating up on Uda for a while. Have to say that they are very excellent at tag team wrestling. That probably goes without saying, but they just look, a head above a lot of these other teams in this tournament. Uda is able to hit one of her patented drop kicks, make a hot tag to Mizuki. Mizuki gets in a little bit of brief offense, but Daisy Monkey is able to take control of her as well. Uda tags back in with some renewed energy. Again, quickly succumbs to Daisy Monkey's offense. They were in a lot more control in the early going of this match than I thought they might be. Things ramp up quite a bit as both teams start delivering tandem offense to one another. We get a lot of quick counters, quick dodges. Arisu has Mizuki in a camel clutch. Mizuki tries to counter it into a crossface when Arisu lifts her up, really strong strength from Arisu, into a Junu Okite, but Mizuki is able to wiggle her way out of that into the crossface once again. Arisu rolls through it, tries to pin Mizuki, only gets a 2. Suzume comes in to help her out a little bit. She hits a facebuster on Mizuki. She cuts off Uda from making the save, hits a Gori Bomb on Uda Takami. Somehow, Mizuki is able to counter this double team attack from Daisy Monkey. I don't know how she does this, but somehow she's able to get up into a step up double stomp. She jumps her way off of Arisu and hits Suzume. With a little bit of an assist from Uda Takami, Mizuki is finally able to pick up the win, pinning Arisu with a cutie special in 13 minutes and 16 seconds. A really hot ending to that match. We did also get some backstage comments as well. Daisy Monkey, despite losing, said that they are very excited at the strength of the tag team division, especially from some brand new teams that are coming into the division. They vow to enter next year's tournament and hopefully win once again, teaming up together. Mizuki and Uda did hold their comments until after the main event, where they knew who they would be facing in the finals. And speak of that, our main event, the other Max Heart semifinals matchup, Pom Paler took on our current Princess Tag Team Champions, Uber Eats. Now, interestingly enough, this is actually a rematch from last year's semifinals of the Max Heart tournament, where Pom Paler was able to beat Uber Eats. That will come into play a little bit, as we'll see in a moment. Wakana starts things off with Max and just gets absolutely obliterated off the get-go. Kamiyu tries coming in and trash-talking Max. Bad idea. Max ends up grabbing Pom and jumping Pom onto both members of Uber Eats on the outside. Apparently, Max picking up Pom to throw her at her opponents constitutes a tag, so she was tagged in during that exchange, and she immediately loses a lot of the momentum for her team. Uber Eats is able to make quick work of her, lock her into this really cool-looking double submission. Pom is able to swing the momentum back, though, with a shin kick, of all things, and makes a tag to Max, who immediately begins playing with their food. And by food, I mean Wakana Uehara, and somewhere in there is some sort of joke about Wakana being a big eater and Max eating her up, something along the lines. I'm not creative enough to come up with it. Wakana is somehow able to escape this monster that is Max, get a tag over to Kamiyu, who comes in and smacks Max right across the face. That is probably not the best strategy. Max pie faces Kamiyu right back. Kamiyu goes for a big boot, but Max is able to just easily down her with a really strong lariat. Max goes for a senton, misses it, and Kamiyu screams for Wakana to help, so she comes running in. They hit this step-up big boot, this assisted big boot to Max's head. Really cool-looking move. Kamiyu goes for a famouser, but Max counters by quickly spearing her, tosses Pom on top of her. That counts for another tag in for Pom. Pokes to Palm's eyes from Kamiyu are blocked. She goes for some shin kicks, but those are blocked by Kamiyu. Palm just decides to scream in Kamiyu's face, classic Palm, and hits a Lafayette Harajuku and the Palm to Justice, but she's only able to get a 2 count. Kamiyu is able to hit a really nice top ropes suplex, but Max is there to break up the count. Wakana tries to take out Max and has zero luck doing it. She gets tossed out of the ring. Max tosses Palm onto Kamiyu from the top rope for a really, really good near fall, but somehow Wakana is able to make her way back in and break that one up. Max takes out Wakana once again. Palm Paler goes for the Lafayette Harajuku Cannonball, but Kamiyu moves out of the corner. Wakana is able to make her way back into the ring a second time, hits Max with a Sushi Tornado. I don't know how in the world she was able to do that. Palm fires up against Kamiyu, but she is quickly downed with a big boot and then a top rope famouser. Kamiyu pins Palm Harajuku in 13 minutes and 29 seconds. Uber Eats will move on to the Max Heart Finals to face Mizuki and Uda Takami on February 14th. After this match is over, Mizuki and Uda come down to the ring. Uber Eats mentions that they are upset about how calm they are. Kamiyu mentions back to how she's grown a lot since her debut match took place against Mizuki. Mizuki and Uda also give some comments here in the ring. They didn't expect to really make it this far, but they say that they did so with some teamwork, some hard work. Uber Eats eventually closes out our show here, saying that they will deliver an emotional finals match. Kamiyu even goes as far as to bring up ChatGPT and AI. Something to the effect of people saying that she doesn't show a lot of emotions, but that she is human, and humans change their emotions almost every single day of the year. And so because of that, they are going to deliver an emotional finals match that you won't get from the likes of AI or ChatGPT. A little bit convoluted. It's not the first time in this tournament that Uber Eats has said something a little bit wacky. But when I was watching this live, I picked up on ChatGPT and AI, and I was like, what the heck could she possibly be saying? Well, it still doesn't make much sense even after you translate it. Anyway, backstage comments. Uber Eats mentions that they are a little bit hesitant about Mizuki. They know the level of competitor that she is. Kamiyu thinks that the smart strategy for them would be to target Uda. Not wrong. Probably a pretty good strategy. Wakana kind of chimes in at this point, says that she absolutely cannot lose to her junior. Palm Paler gave some brief comments, at least one member gave some brief comments, said that they deepened their bond in this tournament and that they will continue to challenge for the Princess Tag titles for the next 200 billion years. That's right, 200 billion years with a B. And then Mizuki and Uda gave some comments here as well, mentioned that they were surprised that they did make it this far, they reiterated that, but they also said it was because of their teamwork. They did mention that they're a little bit afraid of Kamiyu's size, in particular the length of her legs. Also, Wakana's appetite and hunger. They were afraid of being like swallowed up whole. Uda in particular was afraid of both of these things because she is so little. But all of that being said, Mizuki and Uda Takami vow to win the Max Heart tournament and then go on and challenge for these titles. We'll talk a little bit more about this matchup once we preview this show in a week or two. But something I want to mention here is that this is the first time the current Princess Tag Team Champions have made it to the finals of the Max Heart tournament. And then also something for you guys to noodle on for the next week or so. Way back when, Mizuki and Yuka Sakazaki were a thrown together pair for a tournament. They had nothing in common. They really didn't tag together prior. They were thrown together. They ended up becoming the team that we know as the Magical Sugar Rabbits. Maybe that'll happen again with Uda Takami. In no way am I suggesting that Uda Takami is the next Yuka Sakazaki. Don't get it twisted. But food for thought. The Magical Sugar Rabbits started from a similar position, so noodle on that for a little bit. Overall, I was at first a little bit unsure of the main event. I thought that maybe the tournament matches should have been flipped and the Daydream match could have been in the main event, but Palm Paler and Uber Eats was pleasantly surprising to me. Both of the semifinal matches I thought were pretty good. I'm definitely excited for the finals. Definitely want to see kind of what we're gonna come out with here. Obviously, the current Princess Tag Champions have never won this tournament before. So what does that mean? Do they reverse nominate someone? Who do they reverse nominate? If Mizuki and Uda are able to pick up a victory on the finals, do they immediately get a rematch for the championships? It'll be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll cover this show. We'll preview this show in just a week or so's time. But we have another show to get into to preview taking place next week. Coming up on Wednesday, February 11th, it is a weekday show. I think it's a holiday in Japan. Shoko Nakajima is going to have her homecoming show, and this is called Shoko Quest 4, 4 just being the fourth iteration of this, Those Guided by the Snow Country. This event will take place from the Duo Cerezo in Niigata. It will be video on demand though, and it's going to be coming out kind of late on Thursday evening, the 12th. I typically record on Thursdays and then release on Fridays, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch this show by the time next week rolls around. I'll have to get a little creative and maybe think of something. But this is also the event where there is a fan meeting afterwards where they play party games. And then this is the event where a couple of the talent wear wedding dresses. I don't really know the significance. I'd have to research why this event is the one where they wear wedding dresses. But it's been announced that Shoko Nakajima, Mizuki, Haru Kazushiro, and Mifu Ishida will be the four talents wearing wedding dresses at this fan meeting event. Unfortunately, Kaya Toribami will still be absent due to the foot injury that she's had, again, slated to come back at least, on February 14th, the Max Heart Tournament Finals, and we have a 7-match card for this show, so let's dive into a quick little preview here. We'll start off with a 3-way match between Miyu Yamashita taking on Raku, taking on Mihiro Kiryu, so you have to imagine that DDT Iron Man title might be at play there. We will then have 2 singles matches. Arisu Endo will take on Shion Kanzaki, and then Suzume will take on Mifu Ishida. We'll also have 2 tag team matches. Pom Paler, Max is still hanging around a little bit up through, I think, the 14th or the 15th of the month. Pom Paler will take on the team of Hyper Misao and Chika Nanase. And then in the other tag match, Daydream, teaming together once again, will take on an interesting pairing of Sarah Phoenix and Kira Summer. And then in probably the 2 biggest matches of this event, we'll have a 6-woman tag. Uber Eats will tag with Ren Kanatsu to take on Mizuki, Uda Takami, and Shino Suzuki. So basically like a preview tag for the Max Heart Finals. I think that'll be interesting to see. And then in what I imagine will be the main event, I'm not sure if the matches I've named prior to this are the order of the show, but this will most certainly be the main event. Another 6-woman tag, Prism Greed teaming with Shoko Nakajima to take on Yuki Arai, Himawari, and Toga. So that trio, that nerdy trio of Haru, Aino, and Nakajima will remain together. And of course, Nakajima's homecoming show here, so expect her to be highlighted in this main event. I would imagine she wins, although Uda Takami lost in her homecoming show, so we'll see what ends up happening. But an interesting show here, couple singles, a lot of tags, a 3-way. We'll see a preview for the Max Heart Finals. That'll be interesting. And yeah, looking forward to watching this one when it comes out on Thursday evening, video on demand. And then usually, I don't want to guarantee this because sometimes they don't, TJPW posts like a digest video of the fan meeting, but sometimes it happens like weeks or even a month or 2 later. So we might see a YouTube digest video of this like wedding dress fan meeting. Checking in on our graduates and some excursions. We got a lot to talk about here as well. We'll start with some of the graduates. Maki Itoh, this coming weekend, Saturday, February 7th, will have her first Stardom singles match at the Supreme Fight 2026 pay-per-view. Again, if you want like more details on that Supreme Fight 2026 show, check out that video. It'll be in the show notes below, linked in the show notes. Check out the video and the conversation I had with Jason from String 6 Splash, where we dive into that whole card. But just noting that Maki will have her first Stardom singles match against Aya Sakura for the Kawaii of Kawaii Championship. If you're unfamiliar with what all that is about, I won't tell you here. Go ahead and listen to that YouTube video that I did with Jason. You'll get a little bit more information on what this Kawaii of Kawaii Championship is. And then another alumni I want to touch on really briefly is Unagi Sayaka. Unagi had her latest produce show back on February 1st, last Sunday, and I will likely butcher the name of this, but I'm going to give it a shot. Shukumeha Murasaki ni Moeru was the name of the show. Hopefully that was pretty good. She wrestled multiple times on this show, as Unagi typically does on her produce shows, once actually against Maki Itoh, so 2 birds here with two alumni. What I wanted to mention, though, about this is that this one took place at Corcoran Hall, and Unagi was able to draw 1,200 people, 1,200 people to this produce show. And I think she's come a long way from some of her earlier produce shows where she was almost like biting off more than she could chew. She was trying to book like major venues and arenas, and it just losing a lot of money in the process. But she seems to have really rebuilt what these produce shows are. From my understanding, she does them like once a month now, and 1,200 people at Corcoran Hall. That is no easy feat. So kudos to Unagi for putting that together. She's shouted out some really big names that she wants to have on her future shows. Evil, who just recently left New Japan. She mentioned Tam Nakano. I think she did like a Tam Nakano cosplay or something like that at this show. But she's invoked the name of Tam Nakano. We'll have to see if that goes anywhere. But Unagi Sayaka doing some pretty big things of late. And then shifting gears into our excursions corner, this is where we will talk about a lot of the Vegas stuff as well. I went through a host of excursions on last week's show. I will mention them again just so that we have them kind of keeping them on warm on the back burner, but I won't go into as much detail. I'll only go into detail on the newer ones that were announced. So yes, there is even more to talk about, believe it or not, more shows for TJPW. Starting with this weekend, Saturday, February 7th, Shoko Nakajima has been announced to be returning to MLW. Remember, she is the MLW featherweight champion currently. She has been announced for their upcoming show on Saturday called Lucha Apocalypto. No matches here, no matches for anybody on this show have been announced yet. But Shoko's match is not announced, but I believe that it was said that she will be defending the featherweight title. She has had some beef on the recent MLW shows with Shotzi Blackheart, so maybe that's what they'll do here, but no opponent yet. But Saturday, MLW shows are typically free on YouTube, so if you want to check out Shoko's match, you can go ahead and do that. One show that I did mention last week, but I want to correct myself on because I misspoke. The upcoming Setup Thailand show, episode 26, Real Global Impact. This is actually taking place on Saturday, February 21st. Last week I mistakenly said the 26th. I think I just got my numbers mixed up because this is the 26th show. But this Thailand show is on Saturday, February 21st. And on this show, Kick Slash, Kaya Toribami, and Miyu Yamashita will defend their IWA Japan Setup tag titles against Matcha and Monomuth. And then on Tuesday, February 24th, Baka Gaijin and Friends, Volume 28, Big Beat from Badsville. Miyu Yamashita's on that show, wrestling against Antonio Honda. It's going to be a lot of fun. Friday, March 6th, Miyu Yamashita heads over to the UK for Pro Wrestling Eve Women Behaving Badly, where she will take on Jamie Hayter. That's also going to be a lot of fun, but for different reasons than the Antonio Honda match. Yamashita is also announced for the Sunday, March 8th Pro Wrestling Eve show, Wrestle Queendom 8. But something new that I've discovered is that in between these two Pro Wrestling Eve shows, on Saturday, March 7th, Yamashita is actually going to have a little bit of a jaunt over to Spain, and she's going to wrestle at RCW Spain's show called Hell Girls Deluxe. No announcement for her opponent or her matchup just yet, but Yamashita is going to have a busy European weekend. And then shifting gears to Vegas, because I know that's what most of you guys care about, we already knew that on Wednesday, April 15th, Pandemonium Pro Wrestling is hosting their show called Whatever Forever, and they have announced that Sayuri Namba will be their ring announcer. And then we also know that on Friday, April 17th, at the GCW Bloodsport 15 event, Miyu Yamashita will be wrestling. Well, we have a new Vegas talent announcement. On Wednesday, April 15th, there's a show called Pottermania, maybe Pottermania, I'm not quite sure. Pottermania. Toga has been announced to appear on this show. This is really interesting. So Toga is on the Canadian tour with TJPW the weekend prior, actually a few days prior to this April 15th show. And Toga's been announced. So it sounds like Toga's going to be kind of tagging along with Yamashita, heading down to Las Vegas. I think that this is Toga's American debut, if I'm not mistaken. No word on who she's facing or anything like that, or if there's a meet and greet or anything just yet. But this is our second TJPW talent heading down to Las Vegas. One thing I want to note is that this Pottermania show and the Pandemonium Pro Wrestling show are on the same date at the same time, Wednesday, April 15th, 3 p.m. So it will be impossible to go to both of these. They are at different locations. So you're going to have to make a choice if you want to see Toga wrestle in her American debut, or if you want to see Namba, someone who hasn't come to America too often and hasn't participated in a lot of events. So unfortunately, that's a tough pill to swallow, having to decide between the two of them. But that's going to segue me into something I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about here, and that is that I don't think this is the end-all be-all for TJPW in Las Vegas. Now, I always preface this by saying I don't have any scoops, I don't have any sources, none of this is official. These are just my thoughts. There are rumors out there of a TJPW show, a collab show in Las Vegas. Remember that a rumor is just a rumor. Until something gets officially announced, we simply do not know. My thought is that we're going to get a few other talent announcements, and I think that for a couple of reasons. Number one, half the roster is right there in Vancouver, right around that weekend. We're talking 3 days later, 2.5 hour, 3 hour flight. Totally understand. Easier said than done. There's visas, there's passports, there's international travel. It's a whole thing. I get it. But it would seem odd to have half the roster right there a few days before the biggest wrestling weekend in the world and then just turn around and fly home. And number two, they wouldn't be flying home for anything in particular. When you look at the TJPW calendar, after the Vancouver shows on the 11th and the 12th, and then that Gaisen show also on the 11th, there is nothing on the calendar until the 24th. That's a conveniently long amount of time over the biggest wrestling weekend on the calendar. So it could be nothing, right? It could just be planned time off for the roster. It could be that they maybe anticipated doing something and nothing transpired, so they're leaving it open. But it's a little bit curious. It is rare that TJPW would take so much time off in between their shows. We'll just have to wait and see. But like I said, I do think that there will be a few other talent announcements. I'm going to keep my ears to the ground, my ears on social media for any other names that might be coming up. I think it would be a heck of a lot of fun. I will be boots on the ground in Texas. I will be boots on the ground in Las Vegas as well. If you'll be attending either of those weekends, let me know. Would love to meet you. Would love to chat some TJPW, maybe even watch a show or two with you. There is truly so much to look forward to, be it Vegas or Texas or Vancouver, Italy, Grand Princess. The list just goes on and on and on. There's like too much to even name. That's how much there is to look forward to. TJPW has started off the year scorching hot, and there really is no sign of them slowing down anytime soon. I will be covering all of the above on the Tokyo Joshi Pod. I'm really excited to talk about all of these shows, and quite frankly, they are going to be here before we know it. The spring is going to absolutely fly by. That said, I want to thank all of you for your support once again. It really does mean a lot to me. I have a lot of big ideas I'm kicking around for the show in 2026. We'll see just how many of them come to pass, but different show ideas, episode ideas, content, interviews, things like that. But that will bring us to the end of this episode, so grab your cold spray and your ice packs. On next week's show, we'll review Shoko Nakajima's homecoming event. We'll either do a full breakdown or we'll just have to cover the results. Just depends on if I'm able to watch it or not by the time it gets uploaded. There's also going to be 2 shows to preview, the Max Hard Tournament Finals and TJPW Chapter Pause. I hope you enjoyed the show today. If you did, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss any future episodes. You can follow us at Tokyo Joshi Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and X. If you want to email the show, tokyojoshipod@gmail.com. But above all else, remember to keep your hearts burning, stay magical, my friends, and we'll see you next week on the Tokyo Joshi Pod.